Welcome back. Not too long ago, I made a video called My Best Blitz Game Ever, in which I did very, very well. But just to show the other side of the coin, I do very poorly at the same time sometimes. And in this game, I had an average centipawn loss of 224, which, if you're not familiar with average centipawn loss, it's Lichess's way of measuring your evaluation of the game. There's a very complex explanation that I don't fully understand. I just know that the bigger the number, the worse it is. So my best blitz game ever was a 4 ACP, which is almost unheard of, certainly by players at my level, certainly by me. This is 224, and when I saw that, you have that moment where you're like, maybe I should quit chess. But I looked back, I actually have one that was worse than that, 240 something. But I won that game with checkmate on move 21. And I won this game too. It just lasted twice as long, so I had twice as many blunders. 15 blunders. My opponent had 16 blunders. And I don't understand all of them, but I'm going to go through them as quickly as possible. You think we can go through 15 blunders in a 10-minute video? I don't know. Let's find out. This is the game, and my opponent opened with e4, and I played the Scandinavian, which I have talked about at length. They captured the pawn, which is their only good move, and instead of capturing with the queen, which is the old style or standard Scandinavian, I play what's called the modern variation, where I try to win this pawn with my knight and develop a piece at the same time. That's not a good move. They should let the pawn go. But anyway, that's just the opening stuff, which is not related to our blunders. This is a pretty good position. Black has equalized after 5 moves, which is unusual in many openings due to the opponent's inaccuracies. My opponent plays well here. I didn't play the best move, but it's close to equal. They bring out the d-pawn, which isn't great. That's fine. I play the best move. They play one of their best moves. I long castle. They short castle. Here it says it's a mistake for me to do this. I'm not covering mistakes, just the blunders. And they played that. So here's where the blunders start. Okay, here I'm supposed to take the knight. It's really the only good move. You can see the engine suggestions. And the reason is because when they take back, my queen's not really under threat because I'm going to take this pawn. And they might take back, but that's okay. I'm ahead of pawn, whether I recapture the queen with my knight or my rook, right? And they've got a bishop that will be pointed here, but that's guarded right now, and their queen will be off the board. But instead, I decided to not take. And that's a blunder. And it's a blunder because white gets to do this with tempo. Okay. I'm not going to go really in-depth in all these lines just because there's so many. Here, I did not play the best move to get out of it, but it's just counted as an inaccuracy. And then my opponent blunders, I guess thinking they should protect this pawn. What they should have done was push the d5 pawn forward. Regardless, here's my next blunder. If we're keeping track, I think this is 2. I don't have 15 fingers, so we're not going to be able to count it that way. And I don't have any fancy graphics to count them. Here, I should just take this pawn. And again, the reason is because they only have 2 defenders on that pawn, the knight and the queen. If they take back, which is probably one of their best moves, I will take back. If their queen takes back, I will take back with my rook. And we will have traded a knight for a knight and a queen for a queen, and I'll be up a pawn with a rook in the middle of the board. So I did not take the pawn. I didn't do my second best move, which is to get this bishop out by moving my e-pawn. And I didn't play the third best move, which is to move my g-pawn to guard this bishop and get this bishop out this way. Instead, I did something a little risky. I didn't realize it was going to be a blunder, but my idea was if they capture back, I get my queen over here, and there's really nothing they can do about it. I've completely opened up their king, and hopefully it won't be too long before I can bring some of my other pieces over there. Now here they're supposed to take back. It's their only good move. They didn't do it. So that's counted as a blunder. That's not necessarily a bad move. It's just that they should have taken this back. They're not actually under threat right now. If I get my queen over there, there's plenty of things they can do about it. So that's why that was a blunder. But I responded to it with a blunder of my own. My only good move is to get my queen here. And my second best move, which would probably be counted as a mistake, is to just go ahead and get rid of the bishop for a pawn, which it's supposed to be taken anyway. Might as well get a free pawn out of it. But I did none of those things. I thought, hey, they didn't take my bishop on the last turn. They're probably not going to take it on this turn. And my knight's in danger. Which it's really not, though, because if they take the knight, I take this, and then they take back, and then I take back. Or maybe it is in danger. But regardless, I moved it out of the way. That's counted as a blunder. And now they can take this bishop, right? Because I'm only up a pawn at this point. If they take the bishop, they're ahead. So, but that I guess that's why that's a blunder. I should have just gone ahead and gone here. That way they wouldn't take my knight because I could go ahead and take the rook, and it starts to get pretty messy. But they blundered here. They didn't. They're up by 5, as you can see. They didn't take my bishop, which is their best move. They didn't make their second best move, which is to challenge my knight with that pawn and keep going after it. And they didn't make their third best move, which is to go here. Now, that one, I mean, that's pretty obvious. Not only does it go for forking these two pieces down here, aiming for that square, but it also directly challenges the bishop. And that would be a great spot for the knight. It's safe there for the moment. If I do something, silly with the bishop, they have this cool fork here. They didn't do any of those. They brought this bishop here to threaten this knight. Okay. Now here, I'm supposed to, again, take this pawn because the bishop's, it's already been written off by Stockfish. Or, conversely, move this pawn here, which they don't really want to take that pawn and start a chain reaction, but moving this pawn up, more importantly, whoops, that's a bad arrow, guards this knight with my bishop if this pawn gets out of the way. But I didn't do that. I got my knight out of the way again. Okay. Blunder because I had a better move, which was to develop a bit, develop a pawn and get this bishop open at the same time, protecting the knight. They made a mistake here. Surprisingly, I played my best move at this point. It guards against this fork, it threatens the undefended knight, and it points at this bishop. We're already at 8 minutes, good grief. But they didn't respond the best way, which is to protect their knight with this pawn. They protected the knight with the bishop. Okay, now I can attack that knight with this pawn, which I didn't think about, because it looked like it would open me to the fork. And then I couldn't get to it with my queen because the pawn would be in the way. So I played there. My idea, that was counted as a mistake. My idea was to go here to threaten this bishop. And again, my opponent is supposed to take this bishop. But they moved here to add, I guess, extra protection to this, or to threaten perhaps to threaten this unprotected knight. Here, it says, again, I should play the e6 pawn, which protects the knight with this bishop. Or it says, you know what, if you just want to go ahead and make a mistake and throw away all your pieces, just go ahead and take that pawn. Or attack the knight with this. I didn't do any of those things. I went ahead with my plan of putting my knight there. That's a blunder, because I'm still aiming at this. Okay, well now what the opponent should do is definitely this. This one I actually saw in the game. They should take this a pawn, and they're threatening checkmate, because the knight guards that square, which is the only getaway square for my king. That's some serious business. You can see I'm down 13 at this point. But they didn't do that. They threatened my knight with that pawn, which lets me do exactly what I wanted to do, which actually turns out to be my best move at this point. So I take the bishop. All right. Now here, their best move is to go bring their bishop to d3 to threaten my queen. I suppose. But they took the knight, which is probably what I would have done in this situation. Counted as a mistake. Now here, this is one I could not figure it out. I looked at this and I looked at this. Why does it want me to move my queen to f4? It says basically anything else is a mistake. The only thing I could figure out is that eventually I can slide my queen in here. If you follow the line down, it wants me to go to g3 with the queen, which would be cool. It would finally pin this knight that's trying to, this pawn that's trying to get my bishop. So if I moved here and then later got in there, I would be threatening checkmate and pinning that pawn. That was my best move. My next one was the same thing again in order to get this bishop out. Or even probably would have been counted as a mistake, but my next best move is to once again threaten this knight with that pawn. Well, I finally decided, remember all those times it said that was my best move? I did that this time, and it was a blunder. My idea was, I'm going to lose that bishop anyway, and I thought if the king takes, then I can start checking. Checking is good, right? Well, the king did take, which was their only good move. And surprisingly, I played one of my better moves here, which was to check the king. And they moved out of the way, which is a really good idea. And now, again, e6 to get this bishop out. Get the bishop out. It would be really handy to have a bishop checking through here, wouldn't it? But my bishop's trapped. Also, I'm worried about this. Look at that. If I don't do something careful right now, I've got 3 pieces going to get forked with this knight right here. Okay, so best idea is to get my queen out of the way, which right there, that's a good idea, right? Well, I moved something else to that spot. And now look, this isn't even their best move. It says that is. Just give away that pawn. It says I wouldn't take it, but I don't know why. But I know why that pawn move's a blunder because of this. They can do that right now. But they didn't. They didn't. They decided, you know what, this is looking serious, so they're going to get their king out of the way. And now I'm just supposed to go here again. Still don't understand. Well, I went for the check. That's a mistake. And they moved their king. And now it still wants me to go to f4. Have no idea why. Or it says, you know what? Why don't you get one of the rooks out of this coming fork? Well, I didn't do that. I just said, maybe I should push this pawn forward. Now they should definitely do this fork. But they didn't. So that's a blunder. And I made the best move here, surprisingly, or one of my 2 best moves. I just pushed that pawn forward again. That forces them to move their rook over. Ignore the fact that Lichess says this is inaccurate, because if you go back and look at the engine, it's their best move. It was the low depth evaluation that called this an inaccuracy, and it's still listed there. Okay, now I should definitely challenge this knight and just not worry about this fork, apparently. Or, go ahead and get this rook out of the way of that fork. But I thought, hey, what if I went here? I could maybe pick up a bishop, threaten the rook. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's where I went. That's a blunder. And now they do the fork. But guess what? It's a blunder now. Now it's a blunder to take the fork. Okay. One reason it's a blunder is because they're not going to win the rook. Either one of them. And that's because I can go here with check and then pick up the knight, right? But I had already spent all my energy moving my queen there to g2 in order to... what's the difference? This piece or that piece? Well, the difference is the knight is threatening one or both of my rooks. Yeah, so that's a blunder. Because again, I should have checked here to win the knight. But we're even. After all these blunders, I've lost track, have you? And apparently they're supposed to block with their queen, and anything else is a blunder. They did anything else, which is a blunder. Wait, I made my best move here? I finally realized I can get my bishop out and move that pawn. That actually turned out to be my best move. Now, I have no idea why, but the computer wants them to do this, or, offer a queen trade, because I'm attacking, kind of. Queen trade would be good for the defender at this point. I don't know why a3 is listed as a top move, or a4 even. Maybe to give the king some extra running room. I really don't know. But regardless, they took one of my rooks, which wasn't even counted as a mistake. And you can probably see the best move here if you notice that I just made the effort of freeing my bishop. I can check right there. By far my best move. So I didn't do that. I did this, which took away most of my advantage. I'm not sure why. And again, they're supposed to offer the queen trade, but they took my pawn, which is counted as a blunder. And now, guess what? I can, bishop. Same thing that I was supposed to do before. Or here, because the king blocks the other rook off, and a king can't get out of the way. So that would be a really cool move right now. But obviously this is better. This is mate in 4. Well, I missed that, and I took this pawn. I'm still threatening the rook. I don't know what the huge difference is, but you know what the huge difference is? They can actually get off that rank now, and the two rooks can protect each other. Or the rook can get off out of that spot right now by taking the pawn, which is listed as their top move. It didn't do that. The knight decided to get out at this point. And so that's a blunder. Now, pretty obvious move here, right? Take the rook with check, and then the king will move out of the way. And then I will move out of the way, say check again, and can promote at that point. I don't know why this is actually a blunder, though. The reason I mean, I know that that's a good move, but this is a good move too. I don't want the knight to get my other rook. But anyway, it says it evens up the game. The king gets out of the way. And now I should check again on f5. Or here. Not sure why those are my two best moves when there's a whole free piece sitting there, but I took it. That's a mistake. And they finally got rid of that pawn because that was, tying down the rook the whole time. I actually made one of my 3 better moves here, which is kind of an empty threat on the rook, but it finally gets my bishop out. It frees up this rook. And they made their best move, surprisingly enough. They're ahead. I need to go here. Oh no, it changed. It changed its mind. Start marching my g-pawn. Regardless, I thought I was ahead at this point. I know I'm down slightly on an exchange, bishop for a rook. But I thought, I've got their king on the run. My king is relatively safe. Their queen is kind of out of the action. I thought I was doing okay here, so why don't we trade off this rook? Also, this rook hasn't moved the whole game. Yeah, so that was a blunder, and they're supposed to take it, which they did. I took back, and now, guess what? Because that queen guards that spot, they get the tempo back, they free up their other rook, then their king becomes safer because their power pieces are kind of in front of it at that point. But they didn't do that. They did that, I guess, thinking to kind of build a wall to hide their king behind. Now, I thought if they start coming down through here, I'm going to want a hidey hole because I can't keep my queen here guarding the king the whole time. That's why I did b6. Another reason I did it was I was thinking the queen might try to come down through here. Another reason is because I was thinking I could get my bishop there at some point. But here they're supposed to do that. I think perhaps to prevent a5 or to prevent my bishop coming in. But instead they moved their queen here. I guess still trying to come this way. But that's a blunder. I actually played one of my 2 best moves here. Oh, my best move here. Depending on which way the king went, I might win a rook. But the king didn't move. The rook got in the way. And here's my best move again. They didn't make their best move. I haven't finished with my blunders, by the way. I saw This a little too late. But this is check. They block, and now that's when I'm supposed to do this, because then the king has to move back, and I would win the rook. But I didn't see it, so I came back. I was moving fast. My opponent has 9 seconds left. I have less than 30 seconds left. So, but I saw it here. So when they blocked again with the rook, I went back, which is another blunder. Then I saw that, which turned out to be pretty good. They moved back, which gave me that. They can only block, and that's mate. Okay, it took 20 minutes. But I think I understood most of those, and I tried to explain each one just enough as fast as I can, what I should have done instead. And hopefully that was instructive. But another point for making this was just to say that when I show the games where, man, I played a perfect game, or my best splits game of all time, or look how I destroyed this opponent, or I solved 5 puzzles in a row, those are things that I'm really proud of because of how unusual they are. A lot of my games, almost half of them, I lose, and a few I draw, obviously. The rest of that half, I think I win about half my games, and then the other half lose or draw, mostly lose. And all of them, almost all of those losses, if not all of them, have multiple blunders. This one just happened to have the most. I just wanted to show the other side of the coin. So thank you for watching. Once again, thank you for all your support. I have more than 80 subscribers now. That's pretty cool.